if they are this driven and they want something, then all they need to know is the actual skills that they need. They do not need to buy a college degree. They need to know what to learn and how to learn it very quickly. And then they will just gone. They're off on their way. And I've seen that happen over and over through the launch program.
Aloha folks, and welcome back to Degree Free. We have a bunch of stuff to get into today, so let's just jump right in. I think you wanted to start things off today.
Yes, I would love to start things off today. I have a story for you all that I would love to tell you, and that is about one of our young adults who has gone through our launch program, and I want to share his story because it's so cool. Ideally, he's going to be able to come on the podcast and share his own story soon. But in lieu of that, I'm going to tell my version and my side of it now because it's been quite an experience working through this with him. And I'm very excited to share the process, how it worked, and then what happened as a result of that. So I'm going to use a fake name for this story because I've talked to him about coming on the podcast and he probably will. But before he has, I'll anonymize his story a little bit so that I can tell it freely. So basically, what happened is John started in the launch program at 19. He was working, doing construction, doing flooring, hard work, as anybody who's worked in those things knows. And he wanted to get a different type of job, but he didn't know how to start or how to get into the type of industry that he was interested in. But also he was kind of worried that he didn't know maybe all of the options that were out there. And so he ended up applying for the launch program, starting the launch program. So what I want to do with you folks today is I'm going to read you his vocational creativity list. So for those of you that don't know, the way the launch program works, the first session is us going through and figuring out what goals someone has. And then I go out and I find jobs that fit those life goals as opposed to pick work out of a hat and good luck, hope they help you fulfill your goals. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you his list and then I'm going to tell you where he ended up because it's just amazing. And that is what we're going to do today. So his vocational creativity list, and this is a list of jobs that I found for him that fit the goals that he had in life.
I want to point out here that the vocational creativity stuff, and specifically goals first, identifying those goals and then using work to fulfill those goals, like that is the Degree Free way. And I want to point that out because the opposite is so prevalent in the job market writ large, but especially with younger, 16 to 20-year-olds that are just after high school or just about to finish high school. It's always, what are you interested? What do you want to do? Find a job that you love and you'll never work a day in your life. That type of thing. That's always where they go first. Like, well, you should really think about the interest. Like, this was actually a comment on TikTok just literally this morning when I was looking at it. It was, you did a video.
The video about 18 to 20-year-olds who are wanting to leave college or not interested, but they don't really know what to do.
So you did a video that was about 18 to 20-year-old young men that don't want to go to college, but they're not sure what to do. One of the comments was like, you should think about incorporating their interests and passion basically into what you do. In a way, we sort of do, but we don't approach it from that perspective. In a way, we kind of do, but it really manifests itself in your needs and your wants. And really, it's just a conversation that we have with these people. Like, okay, well, what are your goals? And then it's our job to suss out the needs versus wants. If you want to work through that kind of stuff yourself, you can go to degreefree.co/other options to pre-order the workbook set that we are coming out with. And it walks you through the first part of the launch program basically and everything that we do. You can go there and you can work through that yourself. But it's taking those life goals, identifying those goals, and then finding work that fulfills those goals. That is the Degree Free way. And I believe one of the reasons why there's such high job dissatisfaction and therefore life dissatisfaction is because people aren't doing that when they're picking jobs.
Do you know how I know that's true? Because Every single parent almost that has come through the launch program with their child has told me that they wish somebody had asked them those questions when they were choosing what to do and when they were choosing to go into college or when they were choosing a job even. And for those parents, it's such an earth-shattering change because it's a completely dynamic shift away from the way they were told to pick work, which is pick what you love, do what you love, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, wait a minute, what I love doesn't pay well, or what I love doesn't translate into what will support the type of life that I want to live, which happens all of the time. And so we just flip that entire process on its head.
Yeah, right, exactly. Or I can't afford to do what I love.
It's like, yeah, I want to work with koala bears all day. Okay, well, I don't know if you'll be able to afford groceries if you do that.
As a response to that, there are ways that you can work and then do things that you're passionate about as well. I'm a big proponent of doing those things responsibly and getting the things that you need from your work first, and then going and fulfilling your passions later. What I'm saying is that maybe you want to work with koalas. Okay, that's awesome. But you also need to make $150,000
to afford to live where you live.
Maybe you go worry about the $150,000 first.
And then you worry about the koalas.
And then you worry about the koalas. Go do whatever job that you need to. And maybe there is a job that you can work with koalas that makes $150,000. Or
live near your family where you want to live.
Whatever it is, whatever your need is. And that's why you have to have these conversations with your young adult. If you're a job seeker, you need to have these internal conversations with yourself to go through these things and identify what it is that you need and what you want. But I'm just saying, I'm a big proponent of, sure, following your passion. I do think that you should do that. But I just think you should do it responsibly.
It's not going to bankrupt you.
Yeah. Well, also at the end of the day, you might not be worried about money. Most people are, but you might not be worried about money. But at the end of the day, you're just satisfied with the way that your life turned out, because the thing that you're doing most of the time and most of your waking hours
allows you to do what you want.
Exactly. You're not like, oh my God, this sucks. And why does it suck? It probably sucks because you don't have enough money to do all the things that you want to do in life, and that you
or
need
your
to do,
schedule is terrible.
That you need to do in life.
Yep.
Like you can't afford groceries, or your schedule's terrible. You don't see your kids, whatever.
You don't see your family.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever your need is.
No, that's a really good point. And actually, I want to hammer down into that a little bit, because that makes it sound like we don't actually take passions into account. We do. Passions and interests come into account after initial need criteria are met. And then you look. So, okay, I need to make $50,000. All right. Well, first we look for jobs that make $50,000, and then we worry about which ones interest you within those ranges. But if you need to earn a certain amount of money, or you need to live in a certain location, or you can't work overnight shifts, or you can't work early morning shifts, or whatever, or you can't have jobs that have you work standing up, whatever it is, all of those things come into play first. And then we worry about which of these jobs is interest-based. So with that in mind, John was worried first about income, and then about location, and then about schedule. Those are the things that we optimize for in this vocational creativity list. So when I went out and did this research, these are the jobs that I found. Number one on the list was SDR. So that's sales development representative. Number two was sales engineer. Number three was account executive. You'll notice that the top three are all sales based, and that's because that's what ended up fitting the criteria that he gave me and would give him the ability to get into these jobs quicker. Inside sales rep was number four. And also we put these in order and he ordered them. So customer success manager, product manager, technical account manager, systems engineer. We had AI prompt engineer. That was a big one. Machine learning engineer. As you can see, there was a lot of engineering and tech on this one. Data scientist, AI research scientist, data architect, building information modeling manager, CAD technician. And then we had a different category, which was more interest-based that met the criteria. Finance and insurance manager for an automotive sales business. And that could be an actual dealer or working for a company that does car sales, not necessarily to the consumer in that way. Commercial vehicle salesperson, and then fleet sales manager. Notice the last one on this list is the fleet sales manager. The way this works is we come up with a big list, and then the young adult that we're working with and whoever is working with them eliminates different jobs from the list based on interest. This is where interest comes into play after it's met your basic criteria. One of the ones that was very interesting that we talked about actually at length was the fleet sales manager, because it was an interesting job. It fit some of the experience he already had and the interests that he already had. So that one was definitely hard cut to make, but he ended up cutting that one just because the other jobs on the list fit his criteria more. And this is why the interest versus needs thing is so important. But anyway, we'll come back to that. So he goes through the launch program. We end up with his career curriculum, and that is a set of things he needed to learn in order to get the job he ended up with. And so he ended up going the tech sales route. So we went SDR. That was the route that we went. So sales development representative, and specifically for software sales because of the schedule and remote work setup and the income that it allows someone to make. So he started applying for jobs. But before he started applying for jobs, he learned SQL, Python, AWS Cloud, and then as well as Salesforce sales representative, and then also started using LinkedIn Navigator, which is something you're going to have to do if you're doing any sort of sales. And he started doing that, started using those things, started very intensely learning them. I think he learned everything, I want to say within 40 to 50 days of coming out with a plan. And he put in the time, put in the work to learn these skills. And then he went out and he started applying for jobs very aggressively, as we are big on people doing. And the result of that was that this is just too good. He ended up being hired at an AI fleet management software sales company. So he got his interest and he got his number one choice of the research and the finding of the jobs. He ended up with a job that was a perfect blend of all of the things on his list. And it's very cool. It's remote, but there's some travel involved because he was interested in being able to travel a little bit for work. Very, very cool. That is not the best part. The best part of this story is the fact that he was told after he gets his process down within a couple months, they will give him an intern. Guess where they're going to give him the intern from?
No idea.
From a college. They're going to give him a 21, 22-year-old college student to help him automate and run his sales processes more manually so he can be more effective. It's just too good. So for those of you listening, the summary here is after going through the launch program, a 19-year-old flooring epoxy installer was able to get a job in B2B AI software sales. And the best part of this is that he sat down, learned the stack of skills that were in these job descriptions, got a job, and is now, as a reward, not only was given a job, but is also going to be given a college student to teach how to do what he is doing. It's just too good.
What's amazing is the value of just having a plan, just a plan for action and telling you like, this is what to do. This is the direction that you should be going. And then obviously you have to put in a lot of hard work in after that, not taking away at all from any of the hard work that he did, that John did to then get this role and then to basically change his life. But you have to have a direction. John talked about this, I think it was with you, or maybe it was with me when I was talking to him, but it was basically, he listened to that episode 135 that I did, that was talking about like basically being in the right vehicle and hard work doesn't matter. Hard work in the right areas, doing the right things, that is what matters. And that's exactly what he did. He was going to work hard no matter what. I don't remember if it was you telling me or if it was him telling me. We talked about it. Him and I, when we met, we talked about it. But I think it was you telling me that when he originally heard that, he was scrubbing floors or something like that.
He was working on a job, and so he'd been doing a floor, and he sat in his truck. He said after
he's putting down floors.
Yeah.
Not scrubbing floors.
No, putting down floors.
Yeah. And he was just like, I'm in the wrong vehicle with this thing. And that reminded me so much of my own story of going back to my episode 135. You can go and listen to that. I'll put it in the show notes, degreefree.co/podcast. But I worked really hard at being a dishwasher. Like I worked really hard at being a server at a local fast casual restaurant. And did it pay off? Yeah, I mean, it did. I went into the highest paid position at the earliest that I could do it, and I skipped 13 other people that was in line before me. Yeah, it worked really well. But as far as serving my ultimate goals of wanting to retire early, and for me, my goal was really just make money. To actually go into the story, I tell that story in the book, degreefree.co/other options. And it's just really just to tell a story where we can break up this textbook. Sorry, I'm going on a total tangent here, but what's so funny is that you and I wrote this book. This is like the 5th book that we've written so far. And prior to this, we've written 2 books for another business that we did. My name's not on the cover of those books.
But Ryan helped write them.
Yeah, totally. And for this business, this is the 2nd book that we've written. And we went to write this book and we wrote it all out. And we were like, man, this thing is so useful. And then we read it. And we were like, it is super useful, but it is super dry.
It's so boring. No one's going to read it.
I went back to the first book that we wrote for this, and that thing flopped like crazy, like super bad. It is really, really good. Like really, really amazing. It is literally 200 pages. It's a textbook. And nobody bought it. And I don't think anybody used it either.
Even when we've sent it to people, people will just go, okay, great. Thanks so much. And then they'll just proceed to ask questions that I know for a fact to be answered in depth and very thoroughly inside of this book. And so I know what that means is they went in, they cracked the first 3 pages. It was so boring that they quit reading it. And then they just came back and asked me questions.
Yeah. Well, that's also a testament to people who don't value things that are free.
Yeah, that's true.
That's
so unfortunate.
Yeah, that's a testament to that as well.
Yeah.
So we wrote it, and then I was just like, we got to break this up somehow. And then I did a bunch of research. I'm not a writer, and I'm not a publisher. I'm not an editor. I'm not an author.
Well, that's funny because you've been all of those things for the past few months.
Yeah, totally. Full time, really.
Yeah.
But I'm not formally trained in any of that, is what I'm saying. And we have a big, quote, library, and really it's just 2 crappy Walmart shelves. One of them's actually like broken because we're too cheap to like
to fix it. It's like the top half of one of those. Y'all know what I'm talking about. You know those Walmart bookshelves, the mainstays one.
And if you don't know what we're talking about, then you're rich.
Then okay.
Yeah.
You got bookshelf.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Bookshelf.
Oh man, but for those of you, just to paint a picture of this, it's those Walmart bookshelves that, you know how the top half sometimes gets a little wobbly, so you got to put it on the ground. It's one of those. And then the one that we have that is currently constructed, you know, the shelves are on backward. Anyway, I did it. Obviously Ryan didn't do it. So that's our library.
Yeah, that's the library. But anyway, I went back to the library. I was like, okay, well, what is normal in these books? Like, how do these nonfiction books try and attempt to be not so lame? And then one of the things is like stories, and it's like, oh, okay, got it. And so we try to throw in as many stories as possible that's relevant to the subject matter. And I've said this before, but if the point of any type of communication, whether or not that's written or whether or not it's us speaking right now, if the point of that is to have somebody else read it or listen to it, then we should probably do it in a digestible way that they will read the next word and they will retain what it is that we're saying. And so, okay, well, and so we got to think of stories and things like that. Anyway, I tell the story. The reason why I wanted to make a lot of money is like, that's pretty much what my parents and my family wanted for me. But then I ended up wanting that as well. And it's not really money that I want. It's the things that money can afford me, which is security, lifestyle, location independence, those types of things.
I think my phone has been listening to you tell me the stories are really important because it just fed me a masterclass ad for Michael Lewis. And I've never clicked on one of those things. Not only did I watch the entire ad because he was like, stories are important. And then he did it in such a way that he proceeded to tell a story. And so I watched the entire ad. If that's not proof that stories are important, I don't know what is. And then I almost accidentally bought masterclass so I can learn to tell good stories from Michael Lewis.
So it reminded me very much of myself and trying to work really hard at being a server and work really hard at being the best employee at that fast casual restaurant so that I can move up and become and occupy the best seat there, when really I should have not done that. I wish that I had art direction back then, because then I could take that. Obviously, I had action. Obviously, I was not afraid of hard work. I just didn't know what to put my hard work into.
And we were just talking about that too, because a lot of times people comment on TikTok and YouTube and they'll just say, if they're going to do these things, they should just go ahead and buy a college degree. But the thing is, and I'm talking about specifically this demographic of young men. And really though, if they are this driven and they want something, then all they need to know is the actual skills that they need. They do not need to buy a college degree. They need to know what to learn and how to learn it very quickly. And then they will just gone. They're off on their way. And I've seen that happen over and over through the launch program.
Hey there. I hope that you're loving this episode of the Degree Free Podcast. We spend a ton of time every week creating this content for you. So my only ask is you take a quick second to leave a review or thumbs up on whatever platform you're on. It's one of the best and easiest ways that you can support this podcast. And this simple action can help bring more people into the Degree Free community. At Degree Free, we want to help as many people as we can thrive and succeed without needing a college degree. Your review will be a step in that direction. If you could do this small favor right now, pause this and leave a review. It would truly mean the world to us. Thank you, and back to the show. Yeah, going to college anyway is the mindset. It's that papered mindset that we always talk about. There's not no shade on anybody that has the papered mindset. That was me in different parts of my life, and that was me in earlier parts of my life. It was one of the stories that got cut from the book. Actually, we were going to talk about it. Me, after I graduated college, because I have a degree in economics, I got a job in banking. I have multiple jobs in banking, actually. And I actually, quote, employed the degree, but I mean, it literally didn't employ the degree at all, actually.
Because you were out earning by working at a restaurant.
Yeah. And then the thing is, what's really funny about this is that I get people cast a lot of shade on me on TikTok and on YouTube. And it's like, yeah, bro, because you got a degree in economics. You're not wrong. I agree with you. It's not like I picked willy-nilly, because I don't really do that type of thing. I chose economics because of all the things that I was saying. So the whole thing is that I tried to get a degree in finance because I wanted to be like a financial advisor or something like that. You want to know a secret? Is you don't need a degree to be a financial advisor.
No, you need a FINRA license.
Exactly.
Set up FINRA license.
And then you need to learn how to sell.
And you need a job to sell to people.
Yes, that is what you need. Anyway, I failed a bunch of classes because I was working full time trying to pay for school. I also just didn't like school. Like, I'm good at it, but I just didn't like it. I didn't see what the next step was going to be after school. Like, I just didn't understand what it was going to be. So I was like, what am I doing?
I just want to stop you right there, because that is something I hear all the time, which is, yeah, they just don't really see the point. If your child said, I don't really see the point, or I suspect that this is a waste of time, or anything remotely along those lines, your child just needs direction. They do not need a college degree. That is such a indicator that your child has thought through what's going on and just doesn't see why. And the other thing that matters about that is that if they don't see the point, they're not going to be motivated to even do it anyway. And if they suspect it's a waste of time, it's probably going to be a waste of time for them, because they've clearly thought through the fact that there must be another way, or there must be other options, or there must be better ways to do that. And if your child is like that, one, that's a dynamic pattern of thought. And two, if they think that, they're probably right. If they do think that, please help them figure out and just research and find other options that they can go to learn the things that they want to learn, because they do not have to go to a college to learn those things.
That's pretty much exactly what happened to me. I didn't see the point of it, even though like I did my research, quote, but I was like, I just don't see how whatever classes, whatever gen ed classes I was taking at the time, and then whatever like pre-business school classes I was taking at the time is like going to help me in whatever job roles and in the future. And then I was making money, so I was like, I don't get it. Anyway, long story short, I failed a bunch of classes my freshman and my sophomore year. W's, withdrew. I think I had a couple of incompletes, and then I had like an F or a D, or I had a bunch of it. My GPA was like really terrible.
Were those all gen ed classes that you were doing poorly in?
Most of them, except for
like one that was hard, that was part of your actual major?
Nah, most of them were gen ed, I think.
You didn't see why, or didn't care about them?
Some of them were gen ed, but then some of them were the prerequisites that you would need to get into business school, the undergrad business school in the college that I went to.
So crazy, because now I feel like you can teach at the you can probably teach at the business school.
But what was interesting about that was that the way that the college was set up at the time, and I don't know how it is now, I haven't looked back. So let's just say that you need, so let's just call it business class. I forget what the classes are, but let's just say it's pre-business school class 101. What needs to happen is you need to go take pre-business school class 101. And you either need a C, or some classes you needed a B as well. Let's just say for C, for easy quote math, you need a C in this class. If you don't get a C right off the bat, you are swimming uphill, because now you have to retake that class, and your grade to get accepted into business school is the average of the grades that you get.
What?
So if you fail it, you have to get an A. And if you don't get an A, then that's not a C.
What a smart way to make sure people are taking those classes.
So this is what happened to me. Like, this is my life. And this is the reason why I didn't go to business school. And the reason why I became an economics major is because I got an F in one of the classes, whatever, 101, because I was working. I didn't see the point of it. I was doing normal things that people do in college, like partying, all of those things combined is why I was like, I don't see the point in this. I'm not going to do it. Got an F, and I was like, oh my gosh, I got an F in it. Now I have to get an A. And so I took another class, and then I got a B in it for the next semester. And I was just like, it's still not an A. So now I have a F and a B that doesn't average out to a C. So now I have to take it one more time
in order to get into the business school.
And now I have to go back and get an A. I have to keep taking this class until I get an A, or until it averages out, or however the maths out. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like, that makes no sense. And so I wasn't going to take these classes again for like the third time. And I was like, whatever, I'm just going to be an economics major. But that wasn't willy-nilly. I looked at all the other majors that were out there, and I pick the way that everybody picks still to this day, even though this was 10 years ago or 15 years ago or whatever it was. And you go to these websites and you look up like economics major average pay or median pay, and you look at all these websites and they say, well, economics majors make $90,000.
They all look up average pay, which is why it's so deceptive.
But not only that, it's not just average. I mean, those things are wrong. They're just wrong.
Yeah.
The reason why they're wrong is because it's like you can get those jobs without degrees. And then also income stuff is difficult because it's all self-reported, and what jobs require economics degrees and which ones don't, and which ones did you get because of your economics degrees and which ones did you not.
Yep.
It's very convoluted, and it's very difficult to parse through this type of data and through this type of decision making, partially because they want it to be. And
it's intentional. It's very much intentional, because how do you sell degrees if you actually let people look at the real picture?
Right, exactly. Anyway, this is a long story, and I kept it out of the book because it's too long and it's too windy to tell. I felt like it was good to tell, or at least to talk about, because a lot of people go through the same thing. Not like I didn't choose this economics major willy-nilly. I chose it very intentionally. Long story short, I ended up getting all these jobs, and then I was like, hey, but I actually hated the job. And then I quit, spent a few years. What am I doing? A couple of years. Like, what am I doing? I was just bartending. And when it was time for me to be like, okay, I've got to do something with my life. Not that there's anything wrong with bartending. There's nothing wrong with it. I wanted more.
Yeah, you specifically were looking for a different career.
So when it came to getting out of bartending, what is the thing that I went back to? I went back to school. I literally moved my entire life all the way across the country. And that was just a whirlwind of other things as well. I'm sure it was quarter life crisis type of thing. But a lot of that quarter life crisis was induced by not knowing what to do and just feeling like I needed action.
And to start over, to try again.
Feeling like I needed to keep doing something, but I didn't know what to do. And that was the difficult part. If I had direction in what to do, maybe I wouldn't have moved across the country. I'm glad that I did, but then I wouldn't have went and enrolled. It all came out in the wash.
Well, for those listening, Ryan moved across the country and enrolled in school to become an engineer. That was what he did in his quarter life crisis.
Right, exactly. And that was just me throwing a $70,000 dart at the wall. And it was going to cost me 70 grand or so, or like 80 grand or something like that, because I already had a degree. So I just had to take the engineering classes. I was like, okay, well, I can do that. That's fine. Literally, I had all the books. I was completely enrolled, and classes were about to start like a couple of weeks out. I literally did not have the money. Never mind $80,000, but I already had the books and everything. And I was just like, oh, yeah, I disenrolled, and then I returned all the books, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't do this. But anyway, there's a long story short, which is I wish that I had a plan. I wish that I had some direction of like, okay, well, this is your life goals. A really helpful thing that we do is just to help clarify, like, what are your goals? Like, what are your life goals? Because that right there, just some clarification for me of what my life goals were at that time would have been very, very, very helpful.
Yeah. So 18, 19-year-old you, what were your top 2 goals?
My number one goal, 18, 19 years old, was just retire early. Secondary to that would be make a lot of money, because you have to make a lot of money to retire early.
If you had gone through the launch program, what do you think you would have ended up with? I'm curious.
That is a good question. It's a very tough sell. My goal specifically is very tough, and I don't know if I would cater necessarily like to that goal, because okay, well, it's my goal to retire by 40. That's such a lofty goal. And when you're 16 years old as a dishwasher, or 19 years old when I'm in college right now and I've tried something and it hasn't worked, that is such a lofty goal. You have hardly any skills to, I want to make, let's just call it $10 million.
Before you're 40.
Before you're 40.
It's a big goal.
I think that trying to service that goal would be difficult. The way that we would have to approach it is we'd have to break it down in like, okay, what are the skills that you need
that are high value enough to earn
$10 million in income or build. And I wouldn't have had this knowledge back then, but this is why you hire coaches, I guess. If we hire business coaches and things like that, you don't know what you don't know. You don't necessarily just need $10 million in income by your 40. Maybe you have $10 million worth of a company. Maybe a company. You
build something that's worth that much. Or you have stock.
Or you have houses or something like that.
Or you get lucky. Yeah. I would say you get lucky. You get in a company that's really small that gets bigger.
Right. Exactly. And so some sort of asset as well that could go to $10 million as well. And whatever your number is, I'm just using...
It's an easy big number.
Yeah, because it's an easy big number. And then also 10 million is a good amount of money to that. If you just put in the S&P 500, most people, it's going to be enough. The 5 to 6% dividend that it kicks off every year is going to kick you into the highest tax bracket. You're going to make more off of your dividends than most people make by working.
Whoa, big man with an economics degree. What, you think you're better than me?
Think you're better than me?
Yeah. Thank you for explaining the S&P 500 to me. But yes, thank you for that overview. I'm teasing you.
I'm not just pulling $10 million out of my hat because it's a big number. I'm pulling it out of my hat because it's an easy number
to do the math with.
And then, exactly. And then most people, like I said, if you're kicking off a 5% dividend because you're just invested in the S&P 500 and you're experiencing the growth and you're just taking the growth from it, you're, what is that, $500,000? $500,000, you're living very well. You're not the ultra wealthy.
You're in very, very good shape.
But you're in very good shape, and you shouldn't have to, not shouldn't have to, but as long as you keep your expenses within that, you can live off of the interest that it kicks off, the dividend that it kicks off, anywhere. And then you don't ever have to touch your principal of the 10 million. So anyway, sorry, that's a tangent as well. But looking at that, that's a huge goal. Anything short of that goal would be difficult. I think for that, you'd have to, the first thing is talk about expectations of look, I can't help you create a $10 million career. That's crazy. You're 16 years old. You're 19 years old. I'm not saying that it hasn't been done before, but I haven't even done it. I don't know, but I can give you the building blocks to get there. And we're going to have to learn skills to get there. And so the way that I would approach that, and this is a little bit of therapy for me, is I would think about the macro things that need to happen to put yourself in a position to eventually have an opportunity big enough to have a bone to chew on that's big enough that can help you make that amount of money and to help you establish that type of income or asset ownership.
I will say for most people too, there's very few jobs that you can end up earning that amount. It would have to be eventually probably business ownership or a consulting business, or for most of us, right? You could build a construction company. Like you said, you can buy rentals that can increase in value to that, but it's difficult to find a $10 million skill set.
It's going to be very difficult to income your way to that number. But the good thing is if you're starting at 16, if you're starting at 19, not like how I did, and you're starting out like with that goal and kind of having a little bit more direction, then you have a lot more years, because it's not like you have to make $10 million in 1 year. You have 20 years to do it. You can absolutely do it, especially if you keep your expenses low and your income keeps going up and up and up, then you can absolutely do it. It's totally fine. And you can definitely income your way there. It's just you're going to have to make, I mean, what is, like, I don't know, public math.
Oh, no, not the calculator.
I don't want to do it. I don't want to sound like an idiot more than I already normally do. To do $10 million over, let's just call it 20 years, you have to cash flow $500,000 every single year. Every single year, you have to have an excess of 500 grand.
Yeah, more than what you're spending,
right?
More than what you're living on.
Exactly.
You also need $500,000 a year.
And that's just the straightforward math. And that's assuming that you're just letting it sit and fallow and not putting it in a savings. Right, exactly. Not even putting it in a high yield savings account. You're literally just letting it, like you're just taking that money and sticking it under your mattress, because then if you let it grow and compound, then it'll be quicker. But thinking about what are the jobs, for one, that will net you $500,000 plus jobs a year, because that's what you need in income.
High tech for the most part, sales.
The jobs themselves are pretty, not few and far between, but you're definitely in the very small percentage of people out there in the market. You have to think about like, what are the skills that show up most in those jobs. And it really just depends. And there's a bunch of ways that you can go about doing this. You can go the general route of, okay, well, I need to learn sales and marketing because every single company in the world needs those two things. I need to be in the profit center. Like that's something that overarching over everything.
Yeah. If you make a business money, you'll make money.
Yeah. You need to be in a profit center somewhere. You have to be, because the only way to make that amount of money is to be in the place that you are helping, you are enabling that business to make money, wherever that is. It could be on the product side. It could be on the sales side. It could be the marketing side. Doesn't matter. But whatever that is, you have to look for your profit centers and you have to go there. A big thing you have to think about is, I need a big market. I need a big market that's expanding. Right? And so you need to be up on the trends, or you need to at least be thinking about what trends are coming out. So like, for example, right now, a good direction that you could probably rely on at least for the next 5 to 10 years and going into the future is AI. So it's a really clear indicator right now that, okay, this AI thing has legs. You just figure out where are the high leverage places within that type of industry that you could go. It could be in the sales and marketing. It could be, okay, I need to attach myself to a B2B SaaS company that is AI enabled. And then I need to go and sell massive contracts to the Fortune 5s of the world.
That's how we're going to make our money.
Exactly. And I need to just go and sell $100 million contracts to the city of Houston and then to the city of New York. And you just keep doing that. And then, okay, there you go. Or you think, okay, well, AI, well, not sales. Well, then what about on the product side? Okay, well, then how do I build these things? And then you go and tool your career to build those things.
I think another good example of this that's not tech-based would be something that's construction or land development based. Similar concept, which is, as opposed to in-demand technology, it's in-demand places. So selling raw land in places where there's high growth or high population expansion would be another good example of that.
Yeah, or land development.
Right.
As well. Basically, what you need is you need uncapped potential. Obviously, you need that within yourself, because the journey that you're going to take, I'm guessing, because I haven't done it myself. We talked about Taylor Swift, and I think what she did was she just learned how to market, or she learned how to sell herself, and she learned the music industry, and then she found that there was a ceiling in her knowledge and everything like that, and she's just like, okay, well, boom, let's go to the next level. And then, okay, what do I need to learn now? Now that I'm at this next level and I've mastered this level, and you have to learn the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and you just have to keep going up. So in yourself, you need uncapped potential, but then it's also very helpful if the market that you choose also has uncapped potential. I'm not saying that you can't go into dwindling markets, but it's going to be much harder. Let's imagine that you wanted to do this thing, but then you started to focus your career on newspapers. I'm not saying that you can't make, let's call it 600. Let's say you live off of 100, and then I'm not saying that you can't make $600,000 a year working in the newspaper industry. I'm sure there are a bunch of people that do it, or a few people that do it. I'm just saying you're paddling upstream.
Yeah. Why would you not do that?
You're paddling upstream and you're seeing all these other boats like just go downstream. What are you doing? What are you doing? He's like, yeah, I'm going that way.
Yeah. I'm going that way. And yeah, this is such a universal example too, because you see this in other industries as well, like marketing. We talked about tech. We talked about construction or more land, but this also works in other industries that maybe people don't view that way, like beauty. There's quite a few high earners actually in the beauty industry. Why? Because it's consumable. Everyone can use your stuff. If you market well enough and you market right, there's a bunch of beauty billionaires. I say billionaires because the people around them also make money because their company is worth a lot of money. And so that's just an example of that. But off the top of my head, I mean, Rihanna's built her brand like that. Huda Beauty has built her brand like that. Michelle Phan, actually, she's a YouTuber that built her brand like that. And the people around her have also earned money. And then if you're in sales and marketing for somebody with a growing brand like that, you also make money. So there's potential there too.
So to get around to an answer of what we're talking about, which is what advice would I give myself if I had come into the launch program with that goal, with a very clear goal, I would break it down into the skills that I would need. And a lot of it, there's so many ways to get there. And this is very true for everybody that gets to the launch program, especially if you have fewer needs. And we've talked about this before, and we talk about it in the book that's coming out, degreefree.co/other options. The more needs you have in a job, the harder it is to find work. While making $10 million in 20 years is a huge goal, but if that's your only goal, it actually gets a little bit easier.
If you're willing to do something that will make you that.
Exactly. But let's just say that I came into the launch program and I didn't have just that one goal. I was willing to wash dishes and make $600,000 a year washing dishes. I'm down. I don't care. Well, I will shovel off the sidewalks for $600,000 a year. I don't care. Whatever it is, like, I'm willing to do. But if I came into the launch program, I was like, I need to make $600,000 a year, and I need to not talk to anybody. I need to work 20 hours a week. I need to have a personal health day once a week. I need to
live in LA on the beach.
And then now all of these needs, 100% non-negotiables that I'm looking for in my work and in my jobs, well, they got a lot harder to make that money. The first thing is, just be like, okay, well, there's a lot of ways that we can get to that goal. It's just, how do you, now the person, me, my younger self, which one of these pathways do you want to learn? Because we have to learn skills. We have to learn sales. We have to learn marketing, or we have to learn some sort of other skill that is in a profit center, that has uncapped potential, that is in a big market. For myself, now going a little bit deeper past the skills, I'm a big proponent in making that amount of money. I'm a big proponent in businesses. And that's no surprise. I mean, look at my job right now.
I'm shocked.
Right, exactly. Like, I'm obviously biased because I own a business.
Yeah.
I have to check my bias there. But in my mind, if the only goal is to make a lot of money, businesses are a really good way to do that, because everything that you generate for your business is also generating, I don't know what else to call it, just business value or enterprise value, so that the income that you make now, if you're able to systemize it and processize it.
Whatever.
If you're able to create a process and you're able to create systems around it, you can then sell that company and then make a one-time payment based off of the cash flow, based off of the profits of the business now. And so, if you make $100,000 a year now, but you basically make $100,000 a year doing nothing, literally nothing. You don't ever have to do anything. There's 0 employees and it's making $100,000 a year truly by itself. Somebody will pay you $1 million for $100,000 profit business.
Yeah, to take that off your hands.
That does nothing.
Yes.
Right? Like they don't have to do anything. They'll pay you $1 million. In that vein, like, if you have a $1 million a year business where you don't have to do anything, then they'll pay you $10 million for that business. I mean, there aren't very many businesses like that, but truly, if you are able to create one, then you can do that. And
you can earn the money and then sell it.
Right, exactly. That's what I would think about, is creating a business and
what skills you need to do that.
It all comes down to skills. And that's exactly what we do in the launch program, right? Which is identify skills to learn to then go and shape the life you want by using work to fulfill your life goals. And I think for me, that's funny. That was a big rabbit trail that I'm glad we went down, because it was a good, basically just doing our job, our work in real time, and for my previous self. And it also helped me kind of think through a bunch of other things for myself, even currently now. I just had a couple of thoughts about how I could live my life differently right now. I think that was awesome.
We're just going to keep doing rollover episodes.
Yeah, we had a bunch more things to get into that I don't think we have time for anymore. Is there any other final thoughts or anything else you want to say before we get out of here?
Yes, I just want to tie a bow on all of this and drive home the point that the skills that you learn can directly impact the work that you are able to get. And if you learn the skills that you need, and specifically if your young adult learns the skills that they need, they can get the work that they want. And it was very cool to see that in such an up close way, as it always is. But this was just a particularly good story, and I wanted to share it.
Yeah. I think that's pretty much it. Let me know what you guys think about this episode. We didn't have that whole back half of the episode plan. I'm curious to know what you guys think. Let us know in the YouTube comments. Let us know in the Spotify comments. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. Until next week, guys. Aloha.